Okay, shall we rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Here.
Vice President Hammond? Here. Trustee Clements? Here. Trustee Parr? Here. Trustee Schwartz?
Here.
I'd like to just start by making a quick acknowledgement of one of our Haldane alumni. Joey Hyatt Jr. is going through a rough time right now, and we are sending him our thoughts and our well wishes, and hoping that hoping he has a fast recovery, a full recovery, and wishing his family well along the way. And we're going to start with skipping down our agenda a bit to our student representatives so they can get in and out of here. So, Ms. Parr, would you like to begin?
Sure. Are you joining her, or do you want to do it together?
Oh, yes, yeah.
But please start by introducing yourself so everybody knows who our wonderful speakers are.
I'm Catherine Parr. I'm a senior, and I'm one of the student council presidents. And I'm going to talk about the fundraising that we're doing currently in the high school. We are wrapping up our first individual fundraiser for the year, and I have the catalog right here if anybody wants to look at it. It's selling like pizza dough and cookie dough, and that is fundraising for individual student class accounts. And we are starting another one right after Thanksgiving. We have a student council meeting tomorrow, and we will be starting a digital newsletter that the student council is going to be putting together, reporting on class events and what we talk about in our meetings, and that will be available on the website and through the class parents. Our goals for the year are to enhance the aesthetics of the school by putting up murals and potentially painting our parking spots, and working on landscaping stuff too, together with like student council and the buildings department. And finally, I just want to say that everyone, the sophomores and the seniors are working hard on planning their DC and NOLA trips respectively, and the freshmen are planning their trip to Broadway in the spring.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Haynes. I'm a senior class president. Without further ado, I'm going to get into the fall sports for Haldane. And actually, I want to start off, believe it or not, we're actually here without any incentive of National Honor Society hours or any sort of extra credit. So we feel like this is really important right now for the students to bridge the gap between you guys and the students itself. So now we go into fall sports. Start off with volleyball. Volleyball started off with a strong regular season record. We actually won, I believe, who actually lost against the Pauling, who just won the state championship. They're going to win states. Yeah. Probably going to win states. Boys and girls soccer both had a great run in the postseason as well. Boys soccer losing the sectional finals against North Salem, who was also heading to states, and girls soccer won states. And girls soccer who lost against Port Jeff in the regional finals. Across country went to states for, I believe, I think we're in the double digits now just about for going to stage, which is great. Adam Sahavi led the boys team, and he medaled at 13th place at the state's final, so which is great. We're in a 16:51 5K, which is awesome. And the girls came in 8th place as a team. There was a few injuries this year, which made it tough. I know that, talking to Mr. Locasio as well. For football, obviously still going. It's great. They're playing at Dietz Stadium this coming Friday at 4 p.m., so definitely go Haldane football. And on to senior parking. It's going really well. I want to express our thank you from the senior class, definitely, for making that happen. It definitely helps out a lot getting the classes, and it's just nice to have that spot now, definitely. So it's going to be sad, like some of us losing it, but it's definitely a nice thing. And shout out to Mr. Crucci as well, making everything great in the high school too. That's awesome. And for the play itself, the high school drama will be performing Pride and Prejudice on December 2nd. Through the 4th, that weekend. Not sure on the exact times, but I know they have the evening as well, 7 o'clock. So I know they're excited from what I hear as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Also one more thing. For the parking spots itself, we're noticing that the lines are now fading a little bit. I know that it's tough with the gravel, so if we could just address that, because I know that during the winter as well, it's going to get really muddy, as we all know, living around here. So I know that it was really tough getting the budget together for the actual parking space. Maybe in the future, though, we can pursue the fact that it could be paved, which would make it easier. I know that's a lot of problem as well in itself, the budget. And it's a great thing right now, but just to make it easier, I think, in the future, too. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And our middle school students, please introduce yourselves.
I would just like to thank everybody here for letting us speak. We really appreciate it. And I'm the student class president, Douglas Donahue, and I'm currently an 8th grader right now. And what we've started off the year doing is we've started a fundraiser. We've been planning a fundraiser for a local food pantry, and we're collecting perishable goods to donate to the food charity. And originally, there was going to be a middle school dance to collect our funds, and it was supposed to be this Friday, but due to the varsity football game, it'll be postponed to a later date, and that date has been undecided.
So I'm Carlo Cofini, and I'm an 8th grader. And in our social studies class, due to the election that has just gone on in the USA, we have decided to sort of prepare for it by reading some articles about what the certain people that are running for the election plan to do if they become president. So we read some articles about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton and what they want to do with basically our tax plans if they become president. And as we were researching this, we had the chance on news.ela.com to vote for who we want or who we think should be president. Of course, this didn't count towards the actual election, but we voted within our middle school, and the percentages were 49% for Hillary, 41% for Trump, 7% for Jill Stein, and 4% for Gary Johnson. And then throughout the whole newsela.com, we saw the scores through all the students. These were students, not like teachers or any other people. So yeah, we have Hillary, who had 58%, Trump, who had 31%, Johnson, who had 6%, and Jill Stein with 5%. So yeah, we were just preparing for the election and watching some videos and reading some articles about people running for the election. So yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Feel free to sneak away at any time. Okay, so we're jumping back up to our special presentation tonight, which is about the annual Professional Performance Review, known as the APPR. And Dr. Bowers is going to lead us through what that means.
I will stand
I'm
up,
gonna
not blocking
this way.
the presentation. Okay. Oh, what happened here? I'm losing part of it. There you go. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to apologize to begin this presentation because this is somewhat confusing. And it's somewhat confusing because this is a mandate that came out within the last 4 or 5 years. It then shifted. We've been negotiating with part of the mandate, and then the mandate itself changed again. So the APPR is the Annual Professional Performance Review, and this is basically how we assess teachers and principals and the accountability status of teachers and principals within New York State. So the first law that came out was 3012C. And this was a law that was stipulated by the New York State Education Department. And basically what they asked us to do is negotiate with both the principals and the teachers union how we would create a 100-point spread for their annual assessment. And there were certain stipulations that were required, and there were certain percentages that were required within 3012C, and we actually used that for a number of years before it was changed. One of the things that was new to the APPR is something called, and it's people call it the Hetty rating or the Heidi rating, and basically it is that teachers, when they get, or the principals, when they get their 100-point spread at the end of the year, they have one of 4 different designations, which is down below: highly effective, effective, developing, or ineffective. So, which is the Heidi rating. The only people that do not, that are teachers within the teachers union that do not get the evaluated through 3012C are our specialists, our support services specialists, such as our librarians, our psychologists, guidance counselors, etc. So, next. So the original requirements of 3012C were basically to come up with potential 100 points for every individual that was assessed this way. And so when we first negotiated it, 60% or 60 points of the 100 points was locally negotiated and was determined by the district itself. There were a number of different things that you could use it for. At least 35 points of the 60 points had to be for observations, and you could use the additional 25 points for something else if you chose to. Haldane, when it was negotiated, used all 60 points for observations. So a good chunk of the 100 points was from the actual observations and from the observer. 20 points came from SLOs, SLOs, or student learning objectives. And basically, if you were a teacher in grades 4 through 8 and had the ELA and the math exam, you were required to use that as your SLO or your growth objective. If you had a Regents exam, you had to use the Regents or the state exam in order to calculate your SLOs. The tests are actually 3 through 8 tests, but you had to have a growth score, and you couldn't assess it unless there was at least 2 grades that you could look at the growth from year to year. So that's why grade 3 is not assumed in here. The other 20 points was what we call an achievement score, and for our district we have a local 20 where teachers were able to take on a goal for the year. They wrote up the goal, and the outcome could be of a score up to 20 points. And when you added the 3 different categories, the 60, 20, 20, you could get your potential 100 points. And based on where they fell, you were either highly effective, effective, developing, or ineffective. So 3012D came into existence through the governor's office, and this was related to the budget process in a given year. And if you had state funds, or if you were given state funds, state aid, you were required to move from 3012C to add the new stipulations of 3012D. And what happened, in a quick overview, is the way that the 100 points was calculated went from 60-20-20, which we just described, to 50-50. And 50% would be from observations if you were a teacher, or building visits for principals, and 50% would come from the SLO. Where it becomes confusing is the SLO. If you have a Regents exam, you would still use the Regents exam as your growth measure. If you were in grades 3 through 8 or 4 through 8, as the case would have been, you are not required to use the scores on the math or the ELA until 2019. There was a moratorium placed on it till 2019. So you receive a score, you get a score that comes from the state. It's only an advisory score, and it cannot be used for the evaluations until the 1920 school year. So all our teachers have growth scores that are related to a SLO in this situation. We've decided the negotiations that occurred in order to come up with the 3012D version. We are using the NWEA, which is a test that can measure growth from year to year if you do not have a Regents exam that you can use. So at this point, it went from 60-20-20 to 50-50. And there was some real concern with the 50% coming from one test score or minimal number of test scores, and that's why the moratorium exists. All right, APPR continued. So some other parts that are noteworthy. Again, the 3012D, the growth scores provided by the state for teachers and 4A testing are advisory until, as I said, 2019. Teachers with Regents exams will still receive a Heidi score for their 50%, and it will be for the other 50% will be from observations. One of the requirements is that there is an independent evaluator that comes in to observe the teachers in addition to the principal, and you can use up to 15 points through your negotiated APPR for 3012D can be related to the independent evaluator. What we're using as our independent evaluators, it has to be somebody that has a different BEDS code than the principal, which means I could be an independent evaluator. Both Tony can be an independent evaluator and Chris can be an independent evaluator because we will have different BEDS codes. You have to be a certified administrator and you also have to be trained as an independent evaluator so you can go in and we have decided through our negotiations that the independent evaluator's score will be 10% of the 50 points that you could get for that. Other bits of information, laws for 3020A have changed, and for those of you who may not understand the terminology in New York State, 3020A is the law that dismisses teachers. And in order to be able to dismiss a teacher, you have to go through 3020A proceedings. But the difference between what 3020A used to be and what 3020A is now is very different. 30A used to be multiple years of litigation and huge expense to the district. It was estimated at one point that a 3020A removal would cost a district about $200,000. So they took this and they minimized the 3020A. There are specific lengths of time that the district has in order to begin and end a 3020A hearing, and also different reasons. So now related back to the Heidi rating, if you have 2 consecutive developing scores, for overall scores for a teacher, you may bring 3020A charges. It's a very limited period of time. I don't remember if it was 90 or 60 days, but where it used to be years, I think it's 60 days for developing. 60? Yep. And so if you have 2 developing ratings, you may bring charges. If you have 3 developing ratings, you must bring charges. The other difference is if you have 2 ineffective ratings, you must bring charges immediately for 3020A. The length of time, I believe, is only 30 days for that proceeding, and you have to be able to show that there is some kind of malice or issue other than you just are a poor teacher. The teacher is required to prove that to not be dismissed with a 3020A hearing. So ultimately, that is where we move from 3020, whatever, I'm getting my 30s, my 3012D, 3012C, and then we have 3020A. So they're 3 different things. So the next.
What happens if you...
That was the best description of this I've ever heard, I have to say.
Yeah, so this is how we feel when we're talking about it. So it didn't take me, as soon as I saw that, I said that's the right picture for this. So questions, comments, anything that
What happens if you don't do it within the 30 days or 60 days?
you are to. I don't think that it's ever, I mean, there have been so few that there haven't been, I don't think that's ever been challenged. You are required to have it fulfilled, and you will have a hearing officer, and the hearing officer would be the one that actually regulates what happens in the hearing. So it's a requirement. It just needs to be done.
Are there ways for teachers, I'm looking at this 50% of their of their rating is based on observations and building visits for principals. Is there a way for teachers to say, I don't agree with the observation I was just given, and this is why, and
There is an
I
appeals
want
process.
it to be redone or done by somebody else
Yep.
or something?
And there is an appeals process, but actually the 3012D, the way we negotiated the process is we would like our teachers, and Andrea, if you want to join in, because Andrea was on the team that negotiated, we want to give our teachers the flexibility and the comfort to try something new and to push out of their comfort zone as we're trying all these new things. And we don't want it to be something that they feel will create major problems for them if they try something that's new. So we actually wrote into our plan that unless it becomes a repetitive thing or the process repeats itself, that if they try something new and it just doesn't work, we'll be happy to come back in. And if it happens multiple times, then that's different. But we want people to really stretch and to grow and to feel that there's a comfort level. This is not a district. We assume that the teachers are competent in this district. We wouldn't have hired them if they weren't. So the process for evaluation is not to find out whether or not they're competent. It is to find out, to look and see what they're doing that creates and grows teachers in the classroom.
Can I just add another thing as well? As Diana had said, part of our language that we added to the document does say, as Diana said, and that's for the informal observations. If something strange happens, that you're trying to do a lesson using the projector and the projector doesn't work, just something out of the blue, we are kind of calling it like the do-over rule, that you can get a do-over. But also, as far as a formal observation is concerned, part of the formal observation process is a conversation after the observation has taken place. And usually that's when any sort of questions, misconceptions, explanations if necessary, that's when those things usually come to light. So, and that's one of the nice things about working here at Haldane is that we do have the opportunity to have those conversations, in a collegial manner. So, so it is fair as it can be, I think.
Right.
Do you know, actually, so I was trying to remember as you were talking about the appeals process. There's something that I don't quite remember. Maybe you remember, I don't know, but if there is a disparity in the overall rating between, say, the 50% that is based on the HEDI, the growth score, or whatever, the Regents exam, and the other 50% based on observations, like if there's a big disparity between the two. Do you remember language about that? Like what can happen with that?
We didn't change the appeal process, but go ahead. I'm sorry, Brent.
The state's outline, so I think what you're
Right.
asking, Andrea,
Sure. Here it comes.
So I think what you're asking is if a teacher finds their score to be low in one of the two, 50%,
Yes.
right? The state has given us guidance in terms of where the teacher would fall in that HEDI band, correct?
Right. Yes. Yeah. But I was trying to. That's true. There is. It's like if you get ineffective in another. But if there's a big disparity, I was just trying to remember. But maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not remembering. Right. That's what I'm saying. So like.
There is guidance, is that in the chart that they provided?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It does provide.
But it's possible. And if it's the growth score, especially one that comes from the state, there could be a disparity
Right.
in it. And we've seen that happen. So that's part of the appeal process.
Yeah, that's what I was remembering.
Right, and that would be something that you could bring to the appeals process. But I think that we've seen, when we have seen disparities, it's between what the state calculates as the gross score and our understanding of the individual as a teacher.
Exactly, yeah.
And sometimes they don't mesh. And I think that all of us who have been part of either 3012C or D realize that sometimes you're surprised. You know, you look at the scores that come from the state and you say, how is that possible? And so it doesn't always happen the way that you would anticipate, and that would be considered within the appeals process.
That is what I was referring to, okay.
Yep.
I just had a question for K through 2 teachers. How do they earn those 20 points for SLO?
Well, at this point, it's going to be the NWEA.
Okay.
And even the 3 through 8 teachers will receive the scores from the NWEA because the other scores that come from the state are just advisory. And so you would know what you would get if the moratorium wasn't on the scores at this point. And we don't know what happens at the other end when, well, we don't know what happens at the other end. We're assuming there's going to be changes. Yeah, so we're not worrying about anything until we think that there's something to worry about. And we imagine that by the time the moratorium is over, things will change again.
And this and this 3012D is in effect currently as
30
of
3012C and 3012D.
they're both currently in effect.
Right. And things like the appeal process or the TIPs, the teacher improvement plans, or the PIPs, the principal improvement plan, the combination or the conversation that happened with those came from the 3012C negotiations and not the 3012D.
Okay.
So I'm just so clarify the testing part for now. Forget about 2019. Let's talk about 2016. So the NWEA, that's just K through 8.
No, it's going to be K through 12.
So so the results of those exams will be the 50% of a
And the gross scores that are received. And
from the NWEA exam.
right, and the teachers will create, and there will be a SLO where they say that, you know, if this happens, then this will be the number of points you get out of the 50. And so that's part of the SLO process. The only teachers right now that are not using the SLO with the NWEA, which we're just starting this year, are the ones that have Regents exams. And they have to create a SLO based on their Regents.
What were some of the other options that could have been done as far as?
For 3012D?
Well, yeah, like other than NWEA, as far as for the testing, like what other options were there?
There's
Renaissance Learning was one, Ames Web was one.
There's a long list that are state approved, and the evaluations that we use for both the principals and the tests that are allowed through New York State are on the approved list from the New York State Education Department, which actually is pretty extensive at this point.
Right.
I think I'm thinking what you're thinking, Evan. We were trying to move away from tying the tests to evaluations.
I'm not really thinking that so much, and you know, again, I'm thinking like you know, because as far as from my perspective is what I see in schools is that, you know, it's hard enough getting the kids and the families to take the state exam seriously.
Right.
Okay. How do you plan on getting them to take this test that really means nothing other than for the sake of the teachers' evaluations seriously?
Oh, no.
Now we changed
What?
it from Ames to NWEA.
Now,
so
we
that
believe
could
this
get
is a
more
much
data.
stronger assessment than we've ever used before.
It's not. That's not my point.
Still have to
Maybe
sell it.
that's not my point. I'm saying taking it seriously. Okay, you're gonna have a senior's gonna walk in. Okay, May of their senior year, taking a test that is for what? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, what's the selling point for them to take this seriously and focus and do the absolute best they possibly can? Okay, for a test that is Meaningless.
I have to correct you. I'm saying I can't put down on the meaningless thing.
And again,
I do think getting anybody over the age of
union's
8th
gotta
grade.
be on. You must have heard this from the union as well. I mean, I would imagine.
First of all, the seniors aren't taking.
And I don't want to pick on this. Yeah, well, just any high school, you know. And again, and this is me. This is my, from my perspective. This is from a teacher. I'm speaking from a teacher perspective as far as the concern. Okay, is like a Regents exam. Kids, we don't have to worry about it. Kids walking through a Regents exam. They're gonna want to try They're not thinking about I got to do well so my teacher can get a good rating. Okay, they're thinking I got to do well because I want a good grade. Okay, but when they walk in to take this test, okay, what's the
So
walk
there's
me
a
through that?
couple. I think in my mind there's a couple of responses. I definitely think K2 is different than 3-5, is different than 6-8, is different than 9 through 11. So the 12th graders aren't included in this. I want to be careful because when we've talked about NWEA for the last upteen years here, it is much more than just an assessment. It is a teaching tool, and if it's used properly, it's a really strong teaching tool in my mind. It helps us in terms of figuring out strengths and weaknesses. It helps us in terms of grouping. It helps us guide our instruction as one measure. It's only one. So I want to be careful with that. I also think that we are not at the elementary and the middle level, but at the high school level, it's a building-wide score. So you may have a group of students at one age or a different age or one class versus a different class that may skew because they may not take it as seriously as some others. So doing a building-wide score, I think helps because your N is much larger and you reduce some of that. At the elementary and the middle level, it is specific to teacher. So in the middle school, it will be specific to grade level because your English teacher, right, is that whole grade. That will be the ELA, the math, and the science teacher. The math teacher will have their own based on their N, their own population. Special area teachers will get a building score, just like I will get a building score. The special area teachers will get the same building score that I will receive. In the elementary school, the classroom teachers have their 22 kids. They're only getting the score of those 22 kids in the elementary school. I also think the assessment itself, if we talk about it the right way and we let children know, and we even let 17-year-olds know, this is capturing exactly where you are as a learner. It's really molded to you. It's not a standardized assessment like a state assessment where everyone's taking the same thing. This test is going to be specific for you. I think in the middle school that has helped because they know there's no ceiling. Show us what you know. Like you frame it that way, they're like, all right, I'm going to win. Right. So I think a lot of it is in how we approach it with the students too. If they go home and it's just another one of those tests, who cares? That's not going to help, one, the teacher in terms of educating that child, and two, it's not going to help the teacher for the teacher score either. Right. So I think more importantly, we have to keep the focus on NWEA in my mind as, it fulfills that requirement by the state that we might think is crazy. Instead, we have to look at it like, no, this is a really good teaching tool to help our kids succeed. And if we focus on that, then we'll be better off.
Okay. Thanks.
When we were deciding on the NWEA, it was a collaborative conversation. We actually had people that came in and explained the test and the assessments and what the information was that you could derive from it, and everybody agreed to it. And then we've recently had a staff developer come and say, this is what you do with the scores. So it's not just, they got a set in the 70th percentile. There's something that you can actually do to inform instruction. And that's the reason why we went this direction as opposed to some other test. Right. And what we were using for years was limited. And we got very limited information from it. And we chose to go with something that we would have more information from.
If I can give a little bit of a teacher's perspective, Evan, if you
Sure.
don't mind. From our perspective, and when we were first discussing this, I will say, and you may remember, but I had said when my only concern about it is that it's another test, and that was, really my only concern, because when I saw the potential of how this particular test can be used in my classroom, how I can use it for grouping purposes, how I can get a really more of a clear sense of not just, okay, he's having trouble in math, but okay, he's having trouble with number sense, or she's having difficulty, with problem solving. Her geometry skills are very strong, but her algebra skills could use some reinforcement. And it's similar to that person who's across the room who I may not have thought to group him with, to work with. And so I thought that it's something that can be used, unlike the state exams. I really felt that this is something that we can use in our classrooms, particularly on the higher levels, the math and ELA teachers, so we can get a really good sense of how each individual student is doing in many different ways. So that's where we were coming from. The teachers who are part of the APPR committee, that's what appealed to us.
And I think we developed a real consensus in the conversation, and we had limited things to choose from, so we were choosing the best of what we had.
So these tests, though, are something that a parent could opt out their children of.
They could, but we would really recommend that they not do it, because this is something truly that we can use to help the child grow, and we can ask why if there's a problem. This is something that can help us do that. And sometimes with the state tests, we would only receive part of the questions. At one point, we didn't receive any of the questions, so we weren't able to figure out what the issue was. And there would be some information that would be given, but it was limited, and it didn't allow us to do what we can do with the NWEA.
So it sounds like there'll need to be a little bit of parent education.
Yep.
About why this is valuable and why it's not just another test.
And it's something that will continue, so you have the same basic test being given through all the years, so you really can watch the trajectory, and that's an important part too.
You can actually calculate a real growth score with the NWA, right? I mean, that's one of the things that, I mean, the whole, these growth models are so infuriating from a research perspective, because they've been shown to be flawed in terms of evaluation. But taking that back, one of the things that's really different about NWA than, for example, using the state test is they are vertically aligned. I mean, they are really gross. So where you couldn't necessarily compare a kid's score on the 4th grade test to the 5th grade test because they're not vertically aligned, NWA is vertically aligned. So it is a true growth score, and also because it's the same test over time. You're not just comparing 2 time points. So I really do hope, and I'm sure you all are, but really communicating to parents I'm not saying it's like this panacea, this amazing thing, but how different it is from so sorry, I'm not acting as a board member.
Can I just add one more thing? I think it's important for parents too to hear this, is that we, K through 7, have been administering the Ames Web for years to meet RTI requirements, to meet other requirements. So really, in the primary and in the middle school, this has replaced that. So it's not like this something new that came in and didn't replace something. We're not testing now on top of, like, we replaced Ames Web, which we've done for years to help us with RTI and AIS and making sure we're getting the students what they need. So this has replaced that.
Yeah.
A question about the independent evaluator.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, who do you, not specifically an individual, like who do you see doing that? Like, where do you see getting that independent evaluator from?
Well, it will be from within. We're going to use, we're actually differentiating between Tony, who Tony will do, who Chris will do, who I will do.
Oh,
and
okay.
so we're going in and we're kind of combining our efforts, and if we needed to, which I don't think we'll have to, the principals could actually go to other buildings and be the independent evaluator.
Go to the high school.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. Okay.
So that's how it's being done within. And you could appeal the independent evaluator to the state education department, but we didn't feel that there was a need. And so we want to go in and have more than one evaluator anyway, because it can help the teachers understand from different perspectives.
What's the evaluation protocol that you all use? Like, or do you come up with your own, or is there a standard one that you use?
There is. We're Danielson 2007, is what we're using, and then we have a narrative component, and then we have the assessments or the rubrics from Danielson. And what's different as well with 3012D than 3012C is that you can only use the domains 2 and 3 in the observation process, and if you're going to assess domains 1 and 4, you have to do it as per state ed through natural conversations. You can't use those domains during the observation. And so that's being related to our goal setting for the year and through post-observation and pre-observation, but you can't do a correlation between domains 1 and 4 in an observation.
Is that new? That's new?
That's with 3012D. Yep. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Any questions from the public on that presentation?
Scintillating topic.
You didn't know that we did this all behind the scenes, did you? You just thought people came in and taught.
Thanks, Diana.
Thank you, Diana.
Thank you.
Okay, moving right along to our superintendent's. Do you want to do that, or you want me to do the information reports first?
I want you to let them do that, and so they can go home.
Okay, let's go through to the information reports from our administrators. So starting with Mr. Brent Harrington, if you don't mind. What do you get? Oh, do you need to flip that off?
Should I get the ladder and shut that off now?
Oh.
It's just if it is asked, just.
This was an elementary school principal job description.
All right, good evening, everyone. So I want to mention in my board report, we're aware that we have had a growing and vibrant chess program in our elementary school, which certainly I'm quite proud of. In just 3 short years, we've had a number of students who are now competing in local competitions, largely in New York City. So I wanted to highlight a few children, a few students of ours who participated this past weekend at a tournament down in Chelsea. Jeremy Hall actually won first place in the rookie novice division. 5th grade student of ours, out of 180 participants, Jeremy came in first place. So huge congratulations to Jeremy. We had a number of other students, Trajan McCarthy and Clem Grossman, who are competing in the 1,000 and under division. So they have a ranking, and they were competitive in that division, winning, I believe, 2 of their 4 games. And also Colin Delaby, Wilson Robum, and Ryder Hendrickson played in the K5 U600 rookie division. So we have students who are ranked chess players here. The beauty of chess is it's really a true meritocracy, right? You either win or you don't, right? There's nothing that's subjective about it. So we're quite proud of those students, and I want to take a moment to highlight them.
Great.
Thank you.
Congratulations to our students.
Yeah. Ms. Sniffen?
I'd just like to take a moment tonight to kind of highlight the work of the MSIT committee, which is our shared decision-making committee at the middle school level. And this year, we have bravely decided to take on 4 goals, which is more than we normally do. The first of the goals, Mr. Harrington started a pride survey, which is a survey on self-esteem, bullying, positive behaviors. And we started this 3 years ago, and I've continued it the last 2 years. So now we have 3 years of data in regards to our students and these feelings on this topic. So we're going to do some vertical studies, longitudinal studies on figuring out how the students are really feeling on this topic. So we're excited about that work. In addition to that, we are going to continue with the community book read, but we're going to do that in conjunction with hopefully PARP, Parents as Reading Partners, in the middle school to try to bring that program into the middle school, not just in the elementary school. We are also going to be working with the CTC. And the CTC and MSIT will be teaming up to offer and come up with some ideas in terms of helping parents understand the adolescent. I think we often feel like there may be, when we were kids, it was very different than it is for kids today, and the things they face and the things they go through. And I think as parents, we often feel like we're alone in how to manage it and deal with it and not recognizing the neighbor next door is having the same exact issues and trying to come together with some dialogue and some open conversation and some strategies to help one another as parents in dealing with these things. So those are really, then we're going to take a look at the curriculum night format. We're really moving towards the collaborative model where the walls are being broken down in the middle school in terms of those interdisciplinary projects. So we'd really like to take a look at our curriculum night and make that feel a little bit more interdisciplinary than opposed to 10 minutes, okay, the bell rings, hurry up, you're going to the next class. Really bring our teachers together for that. So keep an eye on MSIT, a lot of good work going on, and I'm very happy with our parent representatives. We have Laura is on that. Jen Sporbert is on that, Mae Vang Wong, Tom Vergidamo, Danielle PC, and myself. So.
Great, thank you. Dr. Shoa. Sorry, I wasn't looking up.
I don't want to see it. It's hard to resist not pulling the mic out of the stand. A couple items to highlight from my board report. I feel like I should sing a lounge song or something. One is that our work with the Learner Profiles initiative continues to deepen. Dr. Yellen did visit on Superintendent's Conference Day to teach all pedagogical staff about how to look at student work objectively and to assess a student's strengths and challenges from that work, and then moving forward how to teach the students themselves to address their challenges with their strengths. The next step to deepen that is with something called ruler training, which I mentioned in an earlier board meeting, which comes from Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. The center is actually going to send out an online course to all pedagogical staff next week. It's an online course called the Anchors Emotional Intelligence, and it will give all staff the opportunity to take the course that I took at Yale to work on the social cognition piece of the learner profiles. Which is a very difficult piece to counter because it doesn't always directly connect with the traditional subject areas. But it is always important to a student's learning in that it can preclude or include very important aspects of the learning process, depending on your emotional state. So that's the next big piece of that. I'd like to brag on the Haldane Academy for a moment. They finished their first project-based learning unit this last week, which resulted in a public service announcement video and also a documentary, a couple of the small groups that worked on those, based on the novel A Long Way Gone, which was, is this even on? I don't feel like I'm magnified at all. I'm just going to talk into this prompt.
It's more for the at-home audience.
Okay. I didn't know if I was seeming foolish up here. Just, I might as well.
No,
an
it
empty
is
fest.
important.
Okay.
Yes.
So A Long Way Gone is a novel based on a true story about a child soldier in Africa, and the students created project-based learning projects based on their research into what actually is going on in Africa with those situations, and created these projects, which I hope to screen at a future board meeting and at the high school, with hopefully a keynote address from the filmmakers at the Academy.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Carucci. Sorry, didn't mean to bump you.
Is this thing on? So first I want to thank Brian and Catherine for coming down. It's all about you guys. You did great. Last week we had our first annual College Week, replete with different themes for each day. There was trivia. There was college sweatshirt day. But 3 different colleges actually participated in our instant decision day events. So I'm pleased to report that we had 18 students accepted instant decision one-on-one with different colleges, over $51,000 awarded in scholarships. Ms. Moscow, Ms. Hopper helped out quite a bit. We also took the chance to target kids that might not have normally chosen to go to college. And of that number, there are definitely some that were hopeful to take maybe a gap year or maybe go right to the workforce. And now in conversations with them to hear that, you know what, I got into that college, now I have different options. It was very inspiring.
So how does that work? I mean, is it like they don't have to actually do an application? It's
They do all the application for that event, and they meet one-on-one with an actual local admissions officer.
Oh, so they've done the applications
Yes,
prior.
and so, yeah,
I
they'll
see.
know right
Okay.
then and there. It's very powerful.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is it like the regular application? Like, it's not the common app, it's a...
Yeah, I think for each university it's different, but for this particular event, if I'm not mistaken, there might have been the common app for one, there might have been the different application process for others. But everyone who signed up in advance, we were able to meet with one-on-one, and it was dynamic. And I want to reiterate, there were kids who were like, I don't want to go to college. And now at least they know it's an option for them. And some of those students actually got money.
And which colleges came?
Mount St. Mary, Mercy, and Dominican. Thank you. We always have college admissions people coming all week long, 5 a week sometimes, But this was very powerful. I'd also like to thank Lourdes Lay for putting together our PTA enrichment program. In the high school, we have students who do a lot, who are involved in the play, in every sport, and we may have students who really struggle, and they're maybe in our heart program, but there are students who don't necessarily find that right fit-in kind of spot. And I'm proud to say that the enrichment program has really targeted those kids and really led to some really great successes. Some of them have even tied into one of those, a couple of the after-school programs we have, and it got them really to buy more into being in high school, and a couple of them started going to Hart as a result and are now doing much better academically. So I want to thank Lourdes. We also want to recognize Mr. Salem, our coaches, and all our staff for their continued efforts with our students. Our student athletes are amazing, and I had my first send-off last week with the cross-country team, and it was amazing, and we will have more to come, correct, this week? The open mic experience is meeting during lunch, and we want to really commend and thank John N. Wong and Ms. Verboda for putting it together. And students are all encouraged to come down and participate and see John N. Wong to sign up. The next session's this Thursday. Last but not least, we will have a blue ribbon ceremony to commemorate this wonderful award on Tuesday, November 29th. It'll begin with a high school assembly in the auditorium and continue outside as we raise the blue ribbon flag over our campus, and all are encouraged to attend and join in the celebration. I also want to remind parents that there are parent-teacher conferences this Thursday. So if you haven't signed up already, make sure you call the office.
He's talking to you.
And definitely come out for that upcoming Smash Play Pride and Prejudice the weekend of December 2nd and 3rd, and a happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Salem.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank Mr. Haynes for basically stealing my thunder and saying almost everything I was going to say. So I might as well put my board report away and just wing it. To be honest, I just wanted to review briefly the fall season. Like Mr. Haynes said already, we had a tremendous amount of success both on and off the court or the field, whatever the expression you want to use is. But I'd just like to thank all of our coaches, our players, our parents, our supporters, our booster club, our different associations for all your support. It takes a lot of support for our athletes to be able to go out there and and have fun and produce and just to have a great athletic experience at the high school level. So I truly want to thank everyone that's involved in that process. Like Mr. Haynes mentioned, we had a tremendous amount of success during sectional play. Our varsity girls team, we won the sectional championship in soccer, and we were the regional runner-up. So congratulations to the girls on a successful season in soccer. Our varsity boys soccer team, after having a great season, advanced to the sectional championship and ended up losing to the eventual state champions from North Salem in a double overtime game. That was probably the most exciting high school game across the board I've ever been to, regardless of the sport. So just a huge shout out to the boys program and all the success they had this year. Also would like to congratulate our volleyball team. They had a very tough schedule in the regular season. They came out with a winning record, played a great sectional game to start against Alexander Hamilton, advanced, and ended up coming up a little short against Pauling, who is still alive and going to play for the state championship. But a great season by our volleyball program as well. Our cross-country program, our boys and our girls both won the Class D section championship and advanced to states last weekend, and both teams finished 8th. So thank you to our cross-country runners on all their hard work, and congrats on your accomplishments. Football, okay, thank you very much. Want to congratulate our football team on winning the sectional championship against Tuckahoe. And last week we won the regional semifinal against Roscoe, which was composed of 3 different school districts in a merger. So it really says a lot of how well our kids played, being able to beat them in the regional semifinal. The regional final. The state semifinal will be this Friday up in Dietz Stadium in Kingston at 4 o'clock. If the boys win, they'll advance to the state championship next weekend in Syracuse. So just want to wish them luck and thank them for all their success. Mr. Carucci mentioned we're going to have a send-off this Friday for the football team. I was not at the send-off last week. I can promise that this one will be better because I'm running it. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I wanted to thank Mr. Carucci for running our send-off last week for our cross-country teams. And I also would like to welcome 2 new members to the athletic department. We have a brand new JV boys basketball coach, Mr. Tom Powers. He comes to us as a retired physical education teacher and a former varsity basketball coach in Beacon. He's got a ton of experience. He's great with kids. I'm looking forward to working with him and learning from him. And I'd also like to welcome Megan Crow, who is going to be our new athletic trainer. And I just wanted to thank Dr. Bowers and the board for all your support with pushing that forward and helping with that initiative, because the trainer is going to be a great asset to the community and to the athletic program. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Is there any chance there's going to be a spectator bus, Chris?
Not this Friday.
Not this Friday?
For the championship, it's a possibility.
Okay.
Mr. Twardy.
We can.
I feel like that one 8th grader that. Good evening. I wanted to just say that we took advantage of Superintendent Conference Day by doing some of our mandated classes for the maintenance staff and the custodial staff, the right to know bloodborne pathogens. Then we also went, Carol Sneed from BOCES was there, and she taught our people how to read the chemical labels and the SDS, that's safety data sheets, for all these different chemicals. Then we went into HERA classes, which is the asbestos classes, and these are annual classes that all of our staff has to have, our cleaning and maintenance staff. Just putting away all of our summer and fall equipment, winterizing all of our lawnmowers, and getting all the snow stuff ready. I hope we don't have to use it. So Jeff's been out there getting all the snow blowers going, putting the salters on the trucks, plows are ready, and like I said, I hope we don't have to use it. Usually I like to highlight one person every meeting I come to, and I'd like to highlight one of my maintenance people this month. It's Michael Izakatis. He is an incredibly talented person, and you know, all this work is done behind the scenes, and I think a lot of people just don't understand the scope of what he does. He's, number one, he's an electrician by trade. Number two, he's a phenomenal welder. Number three, he's a great carpenter. He's a great fabricator, and he's just a great troubleshooter of all mechanics in the whole building. And I really think that he saves the district a lot of money, because he does a lot of work here that in a lot of other districts, they would have to go to outside contractors, and we don't have to do that. Just, for example, over the last month, he's worked on all of our exhaust fans on the roof, maintaining the motors, greasing them, putting new belts in. He put a new pump in our boiler room for our makeup water feed tank, which essentially feeds the boilers the water. And without water, obviously, they're not going to run. These are jobs that in a lot of other districts, you're going to have to call on the boiler people to do, and he does it. And I would just like to thank him. And not only that, he's also our backup bus mechanic if Murray's ever out. So he's a well-talented person, and we're lucky to have him. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to go into the superintendent's report. If anyone wants to sneak away, feel free.
Well, I think that Good night, everyone. I think about half of these have already been discussed.
Yeah, I
so
know,
I'll
we're going
do
to
it.
breeze right through.
Go quickly. Tonight, we had our first community leaders meeting of the year, and for those people who have an interest, we have meetings, periodic meetings to update community members on some of the things that are occurring here. And so it was a little bit, we expected it to be a little bit more well attended this evening, but we think the rain kind of slowed people down. So we did have a nice group that came in, and I thank people who do come in and help to get some information out to the community. And if you have an interest in being part of our community leaders meeting, please let us know and we'll put you on the list. The second part of the report, we are going to be inviting John D'Angelo, who is our architect, the district's architect, to come in and join us for the next board meeting. And one of the things that we're going to be looking at are some of the needs, building and grounds needs, and some of the construction needs of the district. And John has a real good handle on this. So if you've been watching over the last couple of months, we've had a lot of discussions about some of the things we need to do within the district, and John can give us recommendations and go from there. So on the 6th of December, if you want to join us for that meeting, that information will be shared. Chris talked about our new athletic trainer, who actually begins tomorrow, provided she's approved tonight, and we look forward to having her. We have recently had the Putnam County Support Services Department come in and provide for us the outcomes of our prevention needs assessment, which are basically, it's an assessment on risky behaviors for teenagers. And every 2 years, we give this survey out to our students, and the prevention survey that has just been completed, they came in and explained how our students reported out related to all the other students in Putnam County. So we are planning on having a presentation of this assessment, and we will have, I think it's the 17th of January will be the presentation from Putnam County. We're also looking at the potential of having the PTA sponsor something in the morning. So that's coming. The next meeting of our Building and Grounds Committee will be held Thursday, the 17th at 3:15 in the Mabel Merritt Building. If anybody has an interest in hearing more about some of the changes and some of the needs that we have for the district, that would be a good meeting to attend. And the last is a reminder, and once again, as Peter shared, we were going to have our National Blue Ribbon celebration on the 29th of November at 8:30 in the morning. It will begin in the high school auditorium, and we'll invite our high school students to be honored for being part of our Blue Ribbon celebration in our Blue Ribbon School. So I just want to share that four of us went down to Washington, D.C. Last week, and it was interesting being in D.C. during the election, but other than that, it was also very nice to be honored as a National Blue Ribbon School. And Andrew McHugh, the president of our teachers union, Brian Alm, the principal during the last many years, and Julie Sniffen the four of us went down. And one of the things that I didn't realize, I mean, I knew it was an honor, but I didn't realize the extent of the honor, but they were explaining during the presentations that it's any public, private, parochial charter school is eligible. So it's any school in the United States. And since 1982, there have been about 7,500 schools recognized, which all in all, if you calculate all the schools, is less than 0.5%. So we are really honored to be part among those schools, and it was a wide variety of different types of schools and different experiences that people had, and the student bodies were all very different and vast, and so it really kind of hit home what an honor this really is. And so I appreciate the fact that the State Education Department nominated the high school, and then the Secretary of Education then approved us as a Blue Ribbon School.
Good. Congratulations. Okay, going into committee minutes, we have the Middle School Improvement Team meeting minutes from 10:19, Buildings and Grounds, minutes from 10:27, and the Phillipstown Communities That Care from 10:26. And all three of these organizations, I just want to say, are doing such impressive, important work. So thank you to all of those people. Any communication from the public? Okay, correspondence. We have a letter from Ms. Diane Chasen regarding our healthcare benefits. We're part of a consortium, and it's just her telling us how they're doing their best to get us the best deals. And there's a letter from Ms. Candy Zaglinski, and that was regarding the concussion protocol in the past. So they are there for anyone to see. Going into consent agenda minutes. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion. Second.
Is there any discussion? We're looking at the minutes of the Board of Education meeting held on November 1st. All those in favor? Aye. Consent agenda financial. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Is there any discussion? I'd like to, of course, thank Damian McDonald for his generous donation of lighting fixtures. And there is an agreement between Haldane and Beacon in regards to a special education student, which I don't think is public until we approve it, so I guess I can't really talk much about it. Any conversation, questions?
I do have one question about that, but I don't know can I ask it? It's relating to the way that agreement is worded.
That agreement is not public content, so I don't think we can ask it. Can we?
It depends on what the question is.
The question is, on section 3, it asks, it says that what the tuition is plus related services. I just wanted to know what the related services were.
Well, there are none for this individual.
So
there could be.
There could be, and so it's in there so that it's a template in case this situation ever happened again.
Correct.
Okay. If it changed along the way with the student, they might require something different.
What would that be? What would the related service be that's not included?
Speech, OT, PT, aid, one-on-one aid, increased staff ratio.
Each one of those things gets billed back individually on top of this tuition.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you.
And is this a general or is this specific? Is this
You
a
mean the
general
contract
agreement?
itself?
Right.
There were some specific things in it, but it's for the most part a general document. But it was tailor-made based on the circumstances.
Any further questions? All those in favor? Aye. Consent agenda.
Now, this remains an executive session. This an executive session, executive content.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Because I'm reading number 17 within.
Right.
Consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
You move faster than I do.
I'll make a
motion.
Second.
Any discussion? The most, interesting thing in here for me was the independent contract service agreement with the athletic trainer, which I believe is executive content until it's approved, but it looks good to me. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, going into unfinished business, we're looking at the policy, the head lice policy. 70.
Start itching.
Yeah. And policy 7515. Questions, comments?
So can I just clarify, because I wasn't here last week when the discussion happened. So we're saying if a child comes in and we find they have active lice, the nurse sends them home with the instructions on how to treat it. They can we're assuming that they are treated when they go home. They come back and get checked at the nurse before they get sent back to the classroom. If there are no active lice, the children can go to class. If there are nits, but they are not active, they can still go to class. Correct. That's basically what it says.
Mm-hmm. But the sending home part, we don't send them home. At the end of the day.
So they don't get sent home during the day, they get sent home at the end of the day.
So if it's discovered at 10 a.m., the kid still goes back to class until the end of the day.
And we were discussing a little bit about it at the last meeting because new guidance has come out, which is really that no matter what happens, the child stays in school. And our policy is in between the new guidance and the old practice. And so it seems like there are a number of districts that have kind of taken the mid-road in the creation of their documents.
The regulation now matches the policy. At the last meeting,
Yep.
what was posted was different.
Yep. Right.
I think there's a real effort to not make head lice like a stigma, that kids aren't dirty because they have it, or it's not some sort of big deal, basically. It's like they're really trying to calm the waters with it and ask teachers, and as the regulations state, having teachers be discreet, which I appreciate, and that they're, not making a big deal out of the kid who has head lice.
And not to interrupt children's education by really keeping them out of class which is so important.
Are there any questions? Does anybody have anything they need to see done differently or recommendations, or does everyone feel like it looks pretty good?
I like it. I mean, I said last week, I like that the policy is now much more in line with guidelines from the Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC.
Okay, do you guys want to approve it? Yes.
Okay. The recommendation is that the Board of Education adopt policy 7515, head lice pediculosis.
Very well done.
May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any communication from the public? Okay, new business. So we are talking about tuition, and this is coming up because, predominantly because of the Haldane Academy. So we've been approached, as we knew might happen, we've been approached by another school about tuitioning into our Haldane Academy. So therefore, we need to talk about what does that tuition look like, because it is a special ed tuition, it's not a regular student tuition. And I thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about what our tuition is in general anyways, just for the board's information, for the public's information about what do we charge students, how do we come up with those rates, what are the standard rates, and and then move into the conversation about what do we want to charge for the Haldane Academy. So,
But I just want to
go ahead.
clarify one thing. It could be a non-special ed student. Alternative high
Thank
schools
you.
can be both.
Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bowers. Would you mind kind of starting along the list for us about what our tuition looks like?
So at this point, we have really a number of different opportunities tuition-wise. There is a certain amount of money for the 15-16 school year. There was a specific rate that we charged Garrison as they sent students, regular education students, to our school, which was $12,940 per year. We also had special education rates that varied, and it could have been anywhere from $14,622 to $34,938, depending on the services and what the additional services that the disability required.
And that rate, those special ed rates are for the Garrison?
For the Garrison School District. Okay. So that's one set of numbers. We also have a consortium agreement between the Garrison School District, Haldane, and Putnam Valley, where we have other types of programs that are available, and we can tuition students into the different programs. And this would be something other than the high school. This would be any K-8 program that was special education that they have or we have that we can share. And we came up with a tuition of $35,000 for that type of situation, and it's about half of what we would be paying in an outside placement. So it first of all allows us to have other options, and the options that we have through the consortium are about half of what an outside placement would be. So that's a second set. Then we've had situations where we have accepted students based on something called the Seneca Falls rate, and this would be for programs or placements in districts other than the consortium districts. And we had a number of conversations about what we think would be appropriate for an outside district to tuition students in. Our Seneca Falls rate for K-6 special education tuition is $78,000 a year, and for 7-12, it's $77,000 a year. And so this is a little bit different than we've had before, and we've tuitioned somebody in from outside placements for the first time using the Seneca Falls rate this year. So we were trying to figure out if we were to use a different rate other than the consortium rate, what would it look like for the academy? And that's one of the questions that we're beginning to discuss at this point. And I was looking at something that would be comparable. And the students that we pulled back from BOCES, from their alternative high school, the tuition was about $65,000 a year without related services, without additional services. So when you look at sending a student to Fox Meadows at $65,000, and you look at the tuition, it's not, the Seneca Falls tuition, there's not a huge disparity. And we could just charge the Seneca Falls tuition and have related services be part of it. We could add related services onto that, and it depends on, or we could come up with a different tuition rate if we do accept students from outside placements into the academy. And I think tonight we are only speaking of accepting students into the academy.
So we've now talked about this a couple of different times. What is the Seneca, what does the Seneca Falls rate mean?
I believe that it was created when there was some lawsuit related to Seneca Falls.
So it is
It's a state.
It's a state rate.
Right.
That
And it's
fly is
created
here from
by
2
the
weeks ago.
states.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They won't die.
So
Okay, so it's a state. So we keep talking about the Seneca Falls rate, but it's a rate set by the state. Okay.
Yes, correct.
And is it the same across all districts, or there's some formula that
There's a
gives
formula.
us our? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
So these rates are special ed Seneca Falls rates?
Correct.
Now, you did mention that there is a possibility that students entering the academy do not meet the special ed requirements. So what would the Seneca Falls rate be?
The reason why I brought up the BOCES program is because regardless of whether the student is classified or not, there is a tuition cost of about $65,000. And then the additional special ed services would be added on to that. So that's the basic rate. And so we can determine the basic rate, and then we can also determine what we have in additional services. And we did create specific correlations between certain services and costs when we were looking at servicing kids from the Garrison School District or Manitou. And so we do have certain dollar values for all related services that we charge schools outside the district who are sending students to Manitou. And we are required we are the LEA, the local education agency, so we have to provide the services and we charge back the other school districts. So we have dollar values for those, and this is kind of like pulling all these numbers in and creating a document that would be for cost.
But do we have a Seneca Falls rate for regular education students?
Yes. The Seneca Falls rate for a regular ed student, K6 is $16,137 and 712 is $15,446. And that's more aligned to what we're charging the Garrison School District. And that would be, what they're paying is the local share versus the total cost, because we then get state aid for those students.
The Garrison students.
Correct.
So that's why they get a slightly reduced friends and family rate. Gotcha.
So why is there the huge disparity between 15 and 77?
Because of the cost analysis for the amount of money it would take to educate a student who is classified with specific services. So one is a non-classified dollar value.
77 minus $15,000.
So how does, I'm still having trouble, how does BOCES can charge us $65,000 regardless of whether a student's classified or not classified?
Because that's the tuition for that school.
Okay.
And so if we were going to accept a student, a non-classified student, into the mainstream, then it would be a different amount. But since this is it's a unique school setting and has different requirements and different supports that would not occur in a mainstream setting, there's a difference in the charge.
So BOCES regular ed tuition is $65 and our regular ed tuition is $16. And is that because BOCES offers technology services, or?
It's the alternative high school in
Right.
particular. She's
It's
not talking about
just the
BOCES generally. She's talking about BOCES, kids who are going into the alternative
Into their
high
alternative
school.
high school. So a regular education student, that's not the rate. Okay, I see.
Well, it could be. It could be one of our regular ed students going to BOCES and we're being charged.
Oh, no, not for that.
Oh,
That
okay.
would be the VOTEC program is very
Okay.
different.
I see, I see.
Yeah,
So
I
that's
kinda need a
only,
chart.
yeah.
Because I feel like the numbers here are so
They're
huge.
There's a huge disparity. And then I also pulled this off, that I sent to the board, which is our fiscal accountability summary. And this is our fiscal accountability summary, which is the Haldane School report card for finance. And it gives you the cost of our tuition for both special ed and non-special ed students, and it compares it to different groups within the state. So our district, we have, I've got the right numbers for you here. The cost for our school district for general ed students is, for the year, this is for 14-15, $12,699. The amount from our special ed students, is $35,871. So there's a disparity there, but that's internal. That's what we spend per student who is classified or we spend per student who is non-classified. The interesting thing that I also would like to point out is when I looked at the 2007-8 numbers, we were spending $41,000 per classified students in 2007-8, and in 14-15 we were spending $35,000. So we actually have decreased the cost internally that we spend on special ed students.
But it sounds like the amount that, the amount that we spend on a regular education student is directly in line with what we're charging Garrison. So it sounds
Basically.
like we're charging the right amount in terms of.
And whether you look at the Seneca Falls rate and then consider the state aid, or you look at what we spend for our kids, yes, it is about the same.
Sorry.
So I had a little bit of misconception, I guess, from some other data that was provided.
Right.
And I still, I had asked some questions. You can't just take our budget and divide it by the number of students and come up with
Yeah.
a
Which is
figure.
essentially what they did.
What they did.
Yeah.
So, and in my questions to Anne, I just said, I'm sure there's a calculation that gets you to our number in comparison to theirs, which is almost double or more than double. So I'd like to see, if we can, how we get there.
How do we get to the 25,000 that you were sharing?
Versus
Yeah.
the 12. There's got to be.
Right.
Right.
There's got to be some
I'm sure
mathematical
it's
equation.
state
But
aid.
that was everything. That was all the kids, whether they're classified or non-classified. It was just, this is your budget, these are the number of kids you have, you take A and divide by B, and then you get C. And so it's very simplistic. I will say that if you were to look at the calculations the state uses, and I'll be happy to share them with you, you almost need a doctorate in physics to take a look and figure out what it is, because there's all these different measurements, and it's weighted daily averages and the number of tapu, and I mean it's very difficult to understand.
Is it possible that the document that you shared and we're thinking about, Laura, is it possible that they just took like an average of like what we spend per pupil,
Yes.
whether they're general ed or special ed, and just lumped it together and said, on average, you spend this much per pupil?
Correct. And that's probably what they did, but in comparison, we have about 100 special ed students, let's just say, roughly, right? So out of the 870, you deduct, that's where I'm having a hard time trying to construe. I get it that it's just a general average figure, but if you were to prorate the special ed versus, that number's not going to be that much off.
And that's why I brought this fiscal accountability report card in, because this is actually created and published by the State Education Department.
Right.
And so they take all the different things, they're taking the general ed, the special ed, they're looking at all school districts, and they're looking at comparisons between Haldane and local school districts, or all school districts in New York State. And they use a measure called similar schools. And so they would compare Haldane to schools that have a similar demographic to us. And so you get clustered into a group called similar schools. So they give you New York State, and they also give you the similar schools numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And this is much more realistic and it includes all the different shifts in the calculations in order to get those numbers.
So any more questions from us on what we currently do with tuition before we actually discuss going into the, do we feel comfortable talking about an academy rate? Are there any more questions about, what we're charging regular ed students or our consortium rate or any of that good stuff? Is it pretty clear?
No, I don't think it's clear at all. I think there's way too many numbers to sit here and go, okay, so we're talking 12 to 77, let's pick a number. I think we need to figure out what it really costs.
Well, I can tell you that we can give you the cost this year, but it's going to change on a regular basis.
Right, but that's how education is, isn't
Yeah.
it? I mean,
Well, because this is our kind of inaugural year, it's just we're starting out and we're learning as we go, and we'll try to figure out the right ratios based on who we have in the program, and we're also probably going to see a slight demographic shift in the students that are accepted in the program.
So I understand your confusion that there are all these different numbers, right? Because there's a lot of information to come in at once. To me, from my perspective, the most important information, in terms of thinking about a rate for the academy, to me, the most important number is what it costs, what BOCES charges for tuition to an alternative high school program.
The Fox Meadows.
Yeah. And so that's what we've typically spent to educate children from our district who have gone there. That's what other districts are paying. That amount of tuition is a number that we discussed as being meaningful when we were making the decision. Not that it was totally financially based, but it's the figure that we considered in our deliberations when we were talking about creating the academy as part of the budget last year. So to me, that's the important number, right? So understanding why one is 12 because it's general ed and it's going to the regular program, that's important information, and it would probably
somewhat irrelevant.
But to me, it's irrelevant. To me, what's relevant?
Starting point is at least minimum 65. I think that's
to that,
what I would
and then
agree
the
on.
issue becomes like, so then to me, and then I guess what I don't know, and I understand Diana says, well, we don't know how much it's going to cost, and I don't think we want to be changing the rate necessarily every year, but I guess then my question is, like, there's always this economy of scale, right? So, like, to what extent is it cheaper for Fox Meadows to educate kids? And that's the kind of thing that I don't know. Like, so there's a part of me that's like, well, if we were going to pay 65, we should charge 65. But then I'm like, well, like, I don't know if I have the expertise to. Again, it's this issue of economies of scale, and so. To what extent, because our program is smaller, or we think we're offering different kinds of services and that we're providing a different kind of education, to what extent might our tuition need to be more than that? And so even though these kids aren't necessarily...
But you could argue it the other way, too. You could say because we're smaller, we don't have as many things at our fingertips as a bigger institution would have.
Right.
So maybe it all balances out.
Yeah. So is Fox Meadows the median of those alternative high schools? Is it the high end? Is it the low end? Like, what's the range of those?
It's very hard to give you a number because each district, BOCES, does things slightly differently. We had 2 students we were sending to the Dutchess County BOCES beta program, but that has a psychiatric component to it. Mm-hmm. So it would be the alternative high school rate plus. And because it is a clinical kind of setting, it's a much higher rate. So it depends on what's being offered. And it's higher.
Those type of students wouldn't be accepted at the academy because it wouldn't be the right environment for them necessarily.
We returned two of our kids from beta who were able to return are in the academy now.
But they're not required to be kids that would need those extra services. Right. They could be regular kids without an IEP, anything.
So do we have the flexibility then if the charges become exorbitant beyond the 65? That's where I guess I'm having a hard time narrowing in on a number, because will we have flexibility beyond the 65 if the charges we're finding out are...
The related services would be added to that. So that's how most districts or most BOCES do it, where they give you the the tuition, and then all related services are in addition.
So 65 would just be like the baseline. And then if they needed, psych services on top of that, it would be an additional 12,000 or whatever it costs. If they need OT, it would be an additional whatever it would. So there's ways to make up for the who knows with a student.
So, but in the flip side of that, when our students were going out, we were saying, yes, we were doing 65, but were we really doing 65 plus whatever?
Depending on who the student is, yes.
So actually, so now I'm going to go back and revise what I said a second ago, because I think that the 65,000, so I don't think I'm worried anymore that the $65,000 is too little. I don't think I am. I'm going back and I'm reconstructing some of these conversations. It's a new program. In deciding to bring kids back, we made the decision that in addition to it being better for kids, we anticipated or wanted it to be, not better, but at home, that we thought it would be beneficial also for us financially. And so anyway, all of that said, my convoluted thought process, the $65,000 as a place to start, to me, for a kid, with an unclassified kid, makes sense. I guess then the question is, if a kid is classified, does it make sense to charge the Seneca Falls rate? I don't. I don't.
You wouldn't know. No. You would be charging more if there were related services.
Okay. So yeah, so I actually, you would. So to me, the $65,000, again, I'm going back to what of all those numbers, how I made sense of it. To me, that number is making sense.
I mean, it makes sense because that's what we're paying, but in reality, it would make sense to really know what it costs.
Right.
Right.
And it's a little bit, we're really premature at this point to do that.
And I would like to see really something that's really competitive to us, as opposed to Fox Meadows. What other alternative high schools are out there that, what are the ranges for Fox Meadows? Because I know Hawthorne Cedar Knolls is not as expensive as that, and they have psychiatric services on top of it. So there's other schools out there that are different rates for sure. So we need to figure out how much it's really going to cost us before we pick a low end or a high end.
Right. So,
why is it so hard to figure out the cost? As far as don't we just add the teachers, whatever staff is there, and whatever a percentage of the staff that's being pulled from here? Couldn't we come up with a number and then divide it by the number of students we have currently?
We could for this year, and we would know what we're spending. But right now, we're finding that some of the support needs of the students are requiring that there would be additional services, and so that's something we're kind of working with as we know.
But we're adding those on, right?
But this is for our students. This is not for outside.
But they would get those if they were here.
Right. So we can give you that. Yes, I can give you that. I know that I can also share some of the other similar situations right now. The Mahopac Falls School, which is a middle level alternative school. We are now sending one of our students there. We can give you that rate, but that's subject to change as well. And then we can look at other school districts, but each school district has their own report card. And so you're looking at the cost per pupil for our own internal students, and that may be something we want to consider or not. But I can tell you that BOCES, what they do is they take the calculations of all the districts within the consortium, the BOCES consortium, and they come up with the price.
But, the other thing I guess I'm thinking is you would let us know if you thought we were coming up with a tuition rate that was not beneficial for the district.
Oh, sure.
So that's, yeah. I think that's the other thing that, well, certainly as a board, as time goes by, we might really definitely want to know more about, what is it costing, and really making sure that it is, that we are getting the return on our investment. I always hate talking about education that way, but I do really think about it. It's like we're spending money. Are we getting what we want in return for that amount of money, right? But in terms of making, my understanding, just based on the conversations we had last year, that this $65,000 rate, that it's not gonna be bad for the district. To be like so supremely articulate.
Yes, well, we got it though.
Yeah, so
And if I could go back to the Hawthorne Cedar Knolls, that's also apples and oranges, because that's a special act district.
And that's my question.
And it's regulated by New York State, and it really, you'd have to look at the contracts of a special act district and what's allowed there versus a district that's not a special act district.
Right, and that's my question. I think there's a lot of numbers that are out there that are similar but different,
Yeah.
and we need to figure out which one is really our comp.
Yeah. And so we can look, and I can give you the local alternative high schools, but then I can't tell you what they used in the determination. And that's why I brought the BOCES rate, because I thought that was probably, first of all, it's been around for a long time. They have an understanding of the services that they provide. They know the contract levels in the region, and so
But
we're.
is that what we can provide? Like, we have to put a number on what it's going to cost us.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm curious what your concern is, right? Because I can't tell if your concern is that we're charging too much or we're not charging enough, because I think.
My concern is we're picking a number out of the blue without knowing how much it's really going to cost and how much it's really going to compare to other schools.
So
You can't just say, you know what, we're gonna, I make $100,000 a year, so let's spend, I don't know, I can spend $5,000 a month. You can't just pick a number. You got to do a budget and figure out how much it costs.
Is that what we're looking to do?
No, I think that what we're doing is we're talking about, if we are going to tuition in a student, we may have to get to the point. I mean, we don't know. The first question is, do we even want to bring somebody in this year, in our beginning year?
We've been approached about bringing in a student for this year.
Correct.
There was a lot of discussion actually at the community leaders meeting that really brought up some thoughts. And I said, he's asking all the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really something I think that we all need to digest a little bit
So what were the
more. The ratio, student to teacher ratio versus assistants, and if we're bringing more kids in, what does that mean for those numbers?
We have to bring in more teachers. Are there safety issues? What
Are
about a
there-
nurse?
Yep, all of those questions.
So that's where my mind started to go in terms of numbers. In addition to what I asked earlier, I got some clarification, but I think it's hard to just come up with a number right now, I guess.
Yeah.
I think we should have the mindset of when we do this, like the point of diminishing returns, right? As far as like by bringing in another student, is this going to help the program or is it going to hurt the program? And we should have, again, this is not something we're going to decide now, is as we grow, if we grow the program, we should have like some type of understanding, okay, in the sense of like whenever new money comes into the program, that it's just not, okay, hey, we tuition in, that's another $65,000 for Haldane that could be used for this, and this. That a certain percentage is understood that, hey, we tuition the program, now we can get we can get a laptop cart just for the program. Or now that we tuition the program, we can do this for the program. So every time we bring in additional students, I think we should have a sense that by taking in this additional student, we're now able to expand the program in this way. So this way, it's not a sense of, okay, we're doing it for the money, so we can take that money and bring it over to this campus.
I think that's understood as far as I'm
Yeah,
concerned.
but I think so. I think I go back to the diminishing return. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's an impossible question for us. This is like a math problem with we're missing a lot of components. Okay, how could we be told we can't answer that question? We need to know how many are there. So you're right. We need to know all those answers.
Point initially, and I don't think this is what we're really talking about, but we have to decide: is this the year to start to tuition students in? Look, there's growing pains with every new.
And we originally said that we wouldn't be tuitioning in the first year.
And we don't want to stress the system.
And we also had a cap of 12 kids. And based on the number of teachers and teaching assistants that we have, we capped it this year at 12.
So what are we at now? What is the?
Right now, we're going to be back at 8.
Okay.
So we would not bring the number higher than that because we didn't feel, we felt that would be the tipping point to where we had to bring in additional staff.
Do you feel like you could, at the end of the year, be able to more accurately say, this is how much this program cost us?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of like right this second, trying to figure that out?
I'm willing to hear that information, but I also want to point out that I think to put too much emphasis on whether the program breaks even or loses money or made money in one year is not the question we want to be asking. Not that that's not important, right? The money.
Unfortunately, the budget is the budget, and we have to ask the question. But I see from your perspective.
But I'm saying that
education is.
It's more
unfortunately always related to money.
Yeah, so yeah.
I don't think we're going to be in the red at the end of the year.
Right.
Based on just the students we brought back, and not including the students that would have been potentially placed out. So that was one of there was a consideration on who would be placed out, who would be able to attend the program, and who we pulled back in.
Well, we can't be in the red. We assured the public that this would be cost.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying, just looking at the 4 kids we brought back, we know we're not going to be in the red.
It's part of our goals, and I think this is good conversation that we're having, just to make sure that we're keeping on track and to let everybody know that this isn't something that we're just making decisions on the whim. And so as part of our goals, I think we just need to talk a little bit more, get more solid figures, and make sure we're heading down the right track.
So it sounds like the board is not necessarily completely opposed to tuitioning in a student this year, but if so, there will have to be several steps before then. Making sure our current system is working well, making sure we have a strong understanding of how much it's going to cost to bring a student in and why.
And we're not at the point that we are even close to a decision of whether or not the student is appropriate for the program. So, I mean, we're bringing this in kind of as a heads up that this is something that we'll probably have to be talking about if we choose to go this route, and we should start the conversation.
Mm-hmm. While we're on the topic of tuition, would you mind also just sharing, maybe with the public, I'm assuming most of the board probably knows this, but just what happens when somebody requests to be tuitioned in to the school? Like, what's the process? If a student, a Garrison student wants to come to Haldane for high school, they're a regular education student, that decision doesn't come to the board. That's a decision the administration makes. And would you say that that's true for all students that approach the school for wanting to tuition? When do you feel like the board needs to get involved with that? When do you feel like that's not our job?
Whether or not the student is eligible to attend would be a local school district decision. And the board would help to define what the schools, the policies of the school, what we're looking for in the instructional process, and what type of additional services we would provide internally. But it's different for Garrison than it is for others because we are an accepting school. We are an accepting district. And if the questions we would have is our mainstream setting, is that something that is appropriate for all the students that are coming in, and that would be through the CSC. So it would either be the CSC making the decision, the district making the decision, and in the case of an outside student that has come in, it would be their CSC, our CSC, and our agreement that came from here along with the lawyers. So there are many different moving parts.
So prior to this year, there was never really anybody outside of the consortium that tuitioned in. Is that true?
Yeah. No, we had students that, no, they were consortium.
So this is sort of a new concept, a new policy that
This is a new concept, and this is one of the reasons why we had this discussion and we are where we are, is because we know that this is a way for the district to continue to provide all the services we presently have, and do some kind of unique financial things that will allow us to bring in additional funds.
But we don't know how much it costs, so we don't know how much funds is going to be additional.
Well, we're
Like,
not
you
talking
can't
about
just say it's a
the
number.
academy right now. We're talking about in general.
No, talking about, yeah, in general.
And in general, question, when students want to come here, what's the process?
Right. But you can't say that, oh, well, this is a nice way for us to get some extra financials, because we don't know how much money it's going to cost.
No, but that's why we have all those rates that we talked about in the beginning of this discussion.
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
Right.
So those rates are set, like the Seneca Falls rate, the consortium rate.
Right, but we can't say it's a way to get extra financials if we don't know how much money it's going to cost. And that's the number we need. We need to know
You're
how
talking
much
about
it's going
the
to cost.
academy.
I'm talking all of them in general.
It's my understanding that beyond the academy, we do have an understanding of how much it costs to educate kids.
Correct.
That's how these rates were decided upon. The state decides what our Seneca Falls rate is because they have some formula that they decide how much each student costs the district. The state came up with that number.
So, but the Seneca Falls rate is $77,000.
One of them, yeah.
So,
Special ed, 7 through 12.
so are we spending $77,000 special ed? No, the answer was no, right?
Are we, for our own students?
Yeah.
The answer is no. Yeah, well, at least in the last report card, we were spending about 36.
Right, so do you see why I'm saying there's a $40,000 difference there? We can't pretend that's not there.
But the state decides what the rates are. We can't change those rates.
Right. So we can't say, but you can't say, oh, well, so we've got extra kids coming in, so we've got this, this extra financing. That's not really how math works.
That's not what I'm saying. I was just asking Diana to go through the process for kids who want to tuition into Haldane.
Okay, so that's a different question.
Yeah.
That's the question I asked.
And
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't think we're at the point that we could even, we're starting a discussion. We're looking at the information that we need in order to make a determination, if we even choose to make it. But at least we can still provide the best instructional practices for the kids that we brought back, whether we tuition kids in or not. And I think that's what we did. That's what we've done so far. And now the question is, do we want to do more than that?
And I think it goes back to policy, right? So we have to set policy, and I think the cart's coming before the horse, and we're just starting discussion to see if.
Right.
So go back, I do have a question about your point about the policy, that, because we don't have a policy about it, about the academy explicitly.
Because we do have a policy about tuitioning students,
Yeah.
but not about the academy.
About the academy, yeah.
That's what we're talking about. The academy is kind of the new issue for us to deal with in terms of tuition. We have a policy for anybody else who comes to our school, and we have rates that are set that we don't get to change, and we have a policy in place for accepting those students or not.
Right. And we really need to begin this conversation before we get into our budget season, because if it has a bearing on our budget, we need to begin the conversation and understand what we want to use to help us make that decision.
Right. Actually, there was a budget code opened, right? So we should be able to narrow in more on those numbers, I think. Unfortunately, Anne's not here tonight, but that might be a question.
And we can do.
Budget code open for expenses?
It was transferred. There was a transfer for
Yes.
this new, for the academy.
We
Yeah.
transferred from our special education line into the academy line in order to be able to pay the salaries. So the money that, for the 4 students that were brought back, will be able to pay for the salaries of these people. And that's what we did. We transferred from one budget line to the other. So we have the funding in order to pay the salaries.
But that only actually accounts for salaries, though.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
But you know, it's also because when you really take a look at it, like if you're sending students to Fox Meadows, you're also paying for transportation and any other related services. So all of these different things start coming into it. And so it's hard to do a direct correlation because there are additional expenditures that you would pay when you're sending a student to BOCES, and there's a different procedures and expenditures we'd pay if we are hiring people, because you have insurance and some of the other costs there. But that's considered.
Do you think BOCES can do it cheaper because they're bigger and they have?
Yeah.
So that's something that.
That's what Peggy was bringing up,
that's
the idea of scale.
Yeah,
This-
yeah.
right?
And also, I mean, I don't mean to suggest that I don't think money is important, but when I think, so I don't even know the kids who are in the academy. I have no idea, I have no even remote idea. But I know that alternative programs are targeted towards at-risk children. And so while money is certainly important, I'm going to put a stake in the ground. I am. I'm going to say that when we're talking about our children who are at risk and it's our community, yes, money is important, but after 1 year, to make a big deal about dollars and cents, I personally would have a moral problem with that. I mean, I would. Yeah, you know.
I mean, you're 100% correct, but there are people in this community who look at the dollars and cents and could be roadblocks, is what I'm getting
Yeah.
at. So we have to just be sure to address 100% guarantee that education.
Right.
And look, there's been a lot of success stories with that, and it'd be an absolute shame, that we're talking about.
So
but in reality.
Right. So actually, even what you just said sort of clarifies, like, this issue. I understand that what I think that wanting to recognize that there is this concern, and that's what you were voicing, and I just voiced the other as well. But I think we're probably on this. Don't disagree on either point. Yeah.
It's just something we have to meet middle
But
ground.
yeah. I guess I was becoming uncomfortable with the emphasis so much on dollars after 1 year, because I don't think that was our intent, right? And I don't think it's the community's intent, but I do understand that people are worried about money.
And I can tell you that there is a watchful eye on all of it, because we want to make sure that we're doing what's in the best interest of everybody.
Well, and I also hope, and I'm going to take the opportunity to say this, for the people that are really concerned about the academy and the money, I think it's really important to recognize the cost savings that Dr. Bowers and Ann have found for the school district in the past few years. I mean, I feel like the district, if that is really a concern that's out there, I hope that people are also paying attention to the fact that Dr. Bowers and Ann have been vigilant. I mean, the public doesn't know how vigilant they've been to identify where where money can be saved. And so to keep in mind that's their goal, you know, that's their goal.
What we told everybody
Yeah.
that the point was to bring people back so we
Yeah.
could save the district money.
No, and I'm not even referring to the academy. I'm referring to the other, I'm referring in general.
All the budget lines.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm referring in general. So if people are really concerned about the financials of the academy, I understand that, but put it in the context of how vigilant the district leadership has been in the past couple of years of doggedly finding ways that we can save money for the district.
Yeah.
So just the bigger picture.
And I don't think anybody minds spending money on our kids. I don't think so at all. We're talking about tuitioning somebody in. That becomes a different dynamic. That's a whole different question. Nobody minds spending money on our own kids, for sure. They're already taxpayers. We're talking about, it's a different thing.
Okay, sounds like we've had a good first
We're certainly talking about it.
round of issues coming up.
And again, I'm going to reiterate that this is one of our goals.
Yeah.
So
Well, it's a topic that the community has certainly talked about, you know, that people want to know more about and want to know
It's
that we're
new,
thinking about.
and people don't even fully understand what goes on at that academy, and like what is the academy, and how are we paying for it, and those are all valid questions. So, and it will, I assume, continue to reveal itself, you know, as the kinks continue to get worked out.
And honestly, I can tell you that I think it will take a number of years before we really have a clear picture, because there's a lot to consider. And, you know, it's a very complicated process beginning a school that really meets the needs of kids that are different from what we've always done before.
And it's ambitious, it's an important, yeah.
Yeah, because you can't raise the number a whole lot and you can't lower the number a whole lot.
Right.
You
And
can't
part of
jump
it is
dramatically.
creating the vision, and our vision is still a little blurry, and it's coming into focus, but it's going to take a while before that happens.
Right.
Okay, good.
There's one more item on our agenda.
Yep.
Future School Leaders Academy. Dr. Bowers.
So we have BOCES in conjunction with Bank Street, and they've done a whole series of these. Actually, the cohort that was for my doctoral program was an FSLA kind of Future School Leaders for Superintendents. And there have been a number of different cohorts that have been created where you take leadership within the district and you support them and help them grow into certified leaders for tomorrow, basically. And in the past, the FSLA members who have come from Haldane, there has been financial support, and generally a third of the tuition or so is paid by the district over a multiple-year period. So there is a new cohort that's starting, and we have 2 of our teachers that would like to apply. And so without knowing the history, I kind of went through, and we have sent a number of cohort members through the FSLA. We are one of the districts that have paid for 1/3 of the cost over a period of time. And so we're bringing up this for discussion to see if this is the direction we still want to go. If we want to do, if it is, do we want to do 1 person? Do we want to do 2? How could we? It would be difficult to make a choice. That would be, but the cost is about $24,000 for the program over a multiple-year period, and in the past it's been 1/3.
So that's $8,000 times 2, potentially. So that's $16,000 a year over the course of 4 years?
I think it's 3.
3 years.
And there can be, and Jen and I had a preliminary conversation about this, and we certainly can create stipulations if people, for how long we anticipate that they will be working in the district and what we would like to see them do, and are there things that they can do to give back during the period that it's happening, and so that's all up for discussion.
And then the other 2/3 these people are paying for themselves?
Yes.
And what did they get out of it, and what do we get out of it?
What they get out of it is certification. And depending.
And what's the certification they get?
Supervision.
Excuse me?
Supervision?
For supervision, right?
Yes,
To become administrator.
it's school business leader, SBL certification, or it could be SDL, yeah. And so that's the reason why the cohort is being created, and local leaders or superintendents, principals are the faculty, so they actually get taught from people who are in the trenches and are doing it day by day. And then very often, I would say almost all of the people that I have mentored through the FSLA program go out and become administrators in local districts. And it's the purpose is to develop the leadership in the region. And it's when you start looking at the number of people that are actually going into principalships and superintendencies, the numbers are dropping very quickly. And so it's up to us to make sure that we have viable leaders that can step into positions.
So like building within, basically.
Excuse me?
Building within.
But there's no guarantee that these people would stay here.
That's a good idea about the stipulations.
Yeah.
It reminds me of, they do this with medical school, and there's even the TEACH program. That's a federally funded program.
Yep.
Both, it's like, so we'll pay your expenses. Like, I think the TEACH is like, we'll pay for you to go get your degree, and you're going to teach in an underserved community for 3 to 5 years. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I would think I would feel more comfortable with doing this if there was some sort of guarantee that we were going to be getting something in return. Is there something throughout their year that they can be providing, like in-service opportunities for their colleagues?
They would have to, because they would have to do like an internship, and they like.
But for the Haldane
for our school.
For our faculty.
They would be doing the internship here. I'm sorry?
And it would earn them points towards their evaluation, or no?
Well,
not really?
no, but there's a requirement that you have to do an internship in order to become certified.
And throughout their time, does their salary increase?
Yeah.
Like every year that they're going through a certification program? How does that work with salary increases? Like, it's like if you get like a certain amount of credits, you get a bump.
Oh, I see what
Like
you're
different
saying.
steps and
Yep.
such. Would it change their salary? So we're gonna pay them more, and we're gonna pay them to go to school.
And
Right.
if
Is
if
that
we
how it
do
works?
Yes.
Or that just kind of came to me as.
Yes.
So can I give you my thoughts on it? Is because I've had programs like this before. Like I've had teachers go through this program, and not through teacher fellow, but like I've had teachers go through a program like this. We did it with Hunter and Baruch, and teachers, they went on to become assistant principals that are still with me today, assistant principal teachers that went on to become assistant principals at other schools and went on to become principals at other schools. So I think it's a very positive thing, okay, because, I don't know this program specifically, but I know the program that we did with Hunter and Baruch was the coursework itself was directly related to working with a cohort of students in our school. Okay, so the work they did for the program benefited the school. Okay, so, and it was very non-traditional. Like when I went through administrative program, and probably when you did too, it was all just blah, blah, like make up a school budget, blah, blah, blah. Okay, right? Okay, so, but this was more specific to our school. So I thought it was great. I thought it was really good, and, it's nice. It's nice to know that there are principals out in New York City that were assistant principals at my school. So with that being said, I think it's a great idea with a couple of things. One, as far as the stipulation, I would be a little concerned about a stipulation as far as once they get their degree, if they leave, they leave. To say, because you put them through an administrative program and they become an administrator, if there's no position for them here, what are we gonna do? Hold them back? I mean, that's like what
I'm
a tease.
thinking more about,
Okay,
like, what do
if
they
they leave
do
in the middle, yes.
when they're
if,
here?
yeah, so like if we sign them up and unless if they don't complete the program, something like that, I would be all for something like that.
They don't complete the program, they have to
Right.
pay us back.
Right. And then, but the only other thing, yes, exactly. And if also the other thing is just maybe in the fairness issue, like a couple of teachers came approach you about it. Is this something that should be like, why are these two teachers being chosen? What if a third hears about it and they say, hey, can I be in it? So maybe like if we just said, you know what, we want to offer 2 slots to teachers and they can apply. And we have a selection. I mean, not, within the board. So this way, there's a fairness to it, okay? And just like the program that I did, these programs I'm telling you about my school, it wasn't just like I went around and picked, they had to apply and they were chosen, okay? By Hunter, actually. They wasn't even, they actually filled out an application to the graduate program at Hunter and Baruch. It wasn't just like fill in this application that we made up. So, I mean, if there's some type of fairness issue, so this way.
And that does exist in this program because it's Bank Street that they're applying.
Yeah, Bank Street, yeah. So, I mean, I think it's good. I mean, I think it would be something good, and it's a positive. It's showing boost morale, showing growth, and you never know. And then one day, when as our administrators move on, then these could be people that could move into their roles. So,
And their
sounds like a positive thing.
internship, or I think maybe something throughout while they're in school in those 3 years. I think they need to be giving back to their fellow colleagues in some form, whether it's on a superintendent's conference day, they're leading a seminar, if it's after school, some sort of, there needs to be like a give back process. They need to come to the board and report to us about like what they've been doing and how it's gone. There needs to be some sort of tangible give back, not just the goodwill give back.
Right. Well, they'll also have within, other than the coursework, they have to do like 900 hours of internship hours. So, this Diana will be able to say, have them going into classrooms and doing this and working with Ann, and so like not only will we want them to do that, they're going to have to do that.
But are they required by their program to do it at Haldane? They could probably do it anywhere.
They could probably do it anywhere, but I have
So-
never seen anybody do it other than the district
At their
that
school.
they're in.
So we could require
Yeah.
that they do their internship here with us.
Do you know if we've had any interest to date? Have you been?
Oh, I've had two
you-
teachers come in to talk about it.
Okay.
And it was that they would like to become district leaders. And the question is, there are 2 different options that people are looking into. One is the FSLA program, and there's another option in a different program that's not related to this. And so the question was, would the district be willing to support us as they have in the past? So that's the discussions coming
How
here.
many people have we done this for in the past?
I would have to find out, but I know that there have been a number of them.
And this is exactly what we did. We did a third, and there was an agreement. So can we find that agreement that, the good back?
I don't know if there was an agreement, but I can tell you that Linda was well aware of the circumstances by which we allowed this to happen.
So that
in the
goes back
past.
to the fairness though now. So if we do it for these 2, then, word gets around and, 10 others say, hey, I want to do this too.
So maybe we need to come up with some sort of like limit where we say we'll send 2 for 1 full 3-year process, and then we'll open it back up for applications type of thing. Because we don't want people applying every year.
Right, and it's not offered every year. So they do a cohort and bring the cohort through, and then a new cohort would be opened up. And I don't know, it's been a while since a new cohort has been created.
Okay. So the chances of us getting droves of people is slim, but still we should come up with some sort of.
And how long ago did we do this before? And what was the cost then?
Well, I'm sure it's increasing through the years, but I can give you the names, and I'll get all that information.
I'm just wondering, was was it a tough budget year? You know, how much did we contribute at that point? Is it significantly different? Like, what line did it come under?
Yeah.
Especially if there was no agreement in terms of.
That's a good point. Could we say, I mean, it would be such a bummer if they started the program and then we pulled financing.
Right.
But would it be fair to say, you know, if we're cutting teachers, we can't be paying for you to go to, you know, could there be some sort of limit, threshold of like, if we're having a budget year where we're cutting programs, we're not going to pay your $8,000 tuition? Or is that totally unfair?
I can see it both ways. I mean, if they come into it, this is something that the district will say, this is how we will help to support you. So it's only a benefit for the teacher, but it would have to be very clear that it may not, if we were to go that direction, that there could be a point that the support would be pulled.
Sounds to me like we'd have to keep that option open. I mean, God forbid.
I can't believe anybody did this in the past without some kind of written agreement like that, for exactly that reason.
I mean,
Well, the finances, I can tell you that, you know, when we were in the land of milk and honey, these conversations didn't happen, but now
That's
they're
why I was
happening.
asking how long ago it
Yeah.
happened.
we are in a land
know?
of uncertainty right now.
Yes, that's right.
But I do, I think Evan's right, the idea of sort of having people stay, that doesn't make any sense. So nix that idea. But I do like the idea, like, to learning more, like, to what extent is the program, like, are there projects that have the potential to benefit our students, and, like, you know, in terms of whatever their classroom activity, their homework. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think that would be good to know.
Yeah.
All right, so it sounds like you have a bunch of suggestions.
And some data to collect.
And some data to collect, but we're open to it. We just need to make sure that we come up with some stipulations.
John Chambers, is he?
He was a Bank
He was a
Street
Bank Street
teacher, I think, a
professor,
professor, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and so one of the things about the program, I mean, I don't know how competitive it is, but I mean, for it to be even anything that we would pay, they have to be admitted. So some external organization is gonna deem them to be, you know.
Worthy.
Is that how it works? So they apply there first,
They
and then
apply.
they come back to us and say, will you do it?
It's through this program that it would be a kind of a combination. It's a group of people that are combined, Putnam, Northern Westchester, BOCES, Bank Street people. And a lot of the professors are retired superintendents or principals.
But the application process, do they go through them first and then come to us and ask for the money? Or do we say, we'll give you the money, and then they apply to
Well,
them?
actually, we would have to approve to support them as a candidate, because they would want to know that the districts are supporting them. So right now, it's not a requirement that the district provides the funding. And there are districts that don't provide the funding. Haldane, however, has been a district that has provided the funding in the past. And so,
So we agree to the funding, and then they apply to see if they can get in.
Well,
Yep.
because it might affect their decision, you know, because they have to come up with the rest of the money.
Right.
So if they didn't think we were going to pay for it, they might say, you know, I can't afford it. I'm not going to bother.
And then they wouldn't apply, but they still have to get in. We could
Yeah.
agree to saying, yes, we'll pay 1/3, and then they may not make the cut if there's only X amount of people. That could happen.
That could happen.
I was seeing if there was a list of anything that would help us, but
Okay.
kind of general.
Sounds like you've got
Yep.
some information to move with on that. Okay, guys, we talked about a lot of stuff. Any communication from the public?
Thanks for
You guys stayed for the whole meeting.
Oh my God.
Good work. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Can I have a second, please?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.